Hello, this is John Felt. Welcome to the NCGA FMC Ag Weather Outlook, May 16th, 2015. Well, planting has continued at a fairly rapid pace over many areas. We're now above 90% corn in the ground in Minnesota. That's leading by far. The eastern corn belt, which has been wet, has been lagging a bit. Only about half the corn is in the ground in Indiana and Ohio. A bit of pickup in parts of Kentucky, which has been extremely wet, but it's been drier over the last week or so. Now, if we look at soil moisture, we do see an area still of lagging dry soils over parts of the upper Midwest and wet soils over parts of the Ohio Valley. But we've had some very significant changes over the last week, and you can see that. First, let's look at the last month. I wanted to show you the drought monitor change over the last month, and areas in green show very significant change. I know that's outside the area we're looking at here, but I wanted to show you how fast things can change. Sometimes you think, well, the weather just doesn't change when we either get extremely wet or extremely dry, but West Texas, West Oklahoma were in the middle of a very severe drought, and they had a 3-class improvement out of 5 classes in just 1 month, so that can really change. We're also seeing changes in parts of the Nebraska and South Dakota, also having drought impacts, seeing some improvement in those areas, but still lagging in parts of Minnesota. Now, many areas across the Corn Belt experience some rain most days of the week. Green shades are 4 out of the last 7 days, and look at blue, parts of the Dakotas, parts of northern Minnesota, 6 days, at least some measurable rain, not necessarily heavy rain, but at least some rain. But overall, we're in a fairly active area over the central part of the Midwest. Now, the far eastern Corn Belt, quieter this week, but most of the area quite wet. But I think the big story was really parts of South Dakota. Look at this, 3, 4, maybe even 5 inches of rain in spouts, also up into North Dakota and parts of Minnesota. And these areas have been extremely dry. Been getting into some drought impacts. So this rainfall here was really needed. This will go a long way to making up any deficit in those areas. Now you can see for the past 7 days, the percent of normal, 4 times, 6 times normal for the week in that area. But I think more importantly, take a look at this. This tells the story for the last 7 days. 3, 4, even 5 inches above what would normally occur over the past week. Rest of the Corn Belt, pretty much, you see a lot of gray, pretty much about normal. But if you look at that South Dakota, parts of Nebraska, North Dakota, even Minnesota, definitely made a lot of ground up in an area that needed it over the last week. Now, the culprit for the rain, as far as the severe weather, is the upper flow from the southwest. You sort of see it's coming in here. And that's going to sort of be the general flow pattern now for quite some time. Doesn't mean we'll occasionally work our way out of it, but that does look like the type of flow. This week, we're going to have a pocket of energy pushing through with some rain. We'll have a front come through, and just some reference, this is on Tuesday where that front will be, that cold front. So once that moves through, there'll be a break, but it's going to be fairly short-lived, because if we look at the latter part of the month, 21st to 26th, look at this. Looks very similar again with a continued southwest flow. Energy coming out of the southwest. This looks like in the central part of the U.S., more severe weather, and fairly widespread rains over a large part of the central western Corn Belt. Not as much over the eastern, but still, this is a pattern conducive to precipitation, not necessarily dryness. And this looks like it's going to continue right through the end of the month and very likely into early June as well. Now, before I talk about precipitation, let's take a look at temperatures. Remember, I told you that front's going to be passing through. So behind it, we're looking at temperatures 5 to 10 degrees below normal over the upper Corn Belt this week. Eastern Corn Belt, pretty close to normal. Then as we go through the May 21st to 26th, generally speaking, temperatures close to normal. Maybe a couple degrees cooler here and there, but overall near normal temperatures. And then as we get into the very end of May, again, near normal temperature. So maybe a little bit below, a little bit above, but I'm going to call that overall within 5 degrees plus or minus normal as we round out the rest of the month. Now, precipitation has been what's really been interesting, and the next 7 days, it does look like the western Corn Belt will receive the most precipitation, but overall, it looks like fairly light precipitation going further east. The heaviest rainfall by far is still going to be over the south central U.S., Texas, Oklahoma, and that area is really getting into a serious flooding situation with excessive rain week after week. Now, I wanted to show you another image here. I showed you this last week. It's from a numerical weather model for the next 10 days, sort of the big picture. And you can see almost all areas are covered with some degree of precipitation. And the area blue is generally between 1 and 3 inches. So most of the area is not expected to get necessarily a heavy rain, but it does look like the areas in purple, and I think we're looking at sort of the central part, the core of the Corn Belt here, maybe the western Corn Belt as well. That could be in the 2 to 4 inches of rain, maybe a little bit heavier. But overall, I think when we compare this to normal, it looks like what I would call sort of an ample precipitation type pattern. Now, I know precipitation and temperatures are very important to you, so let's go and take a look for the next 4 weeks to see what we can see as far as trends. Now, this is the first week, and remember I said the eastern Corn Belt a bit drier, so below normal precipitation in that area is indicated in yellow. Everywhere else in the Corn Belt, it looks like normal to a bit above normal precipitation this week. Week 2, pretty much the same story. I'm seeing sort of a relatively near normal or maybe a little bit below normal over the eastern Corn Belt, but a very broad area of above normal precipitation over the rest of the region. That's week 2. Look at week 3, almost identical. So we're looking at ample precipitation for at least 3 weeks in a row over the core sections of the Corn Belt from the Dakotas, Kansas, Nebraska, eastward to at least Wisconsin and Illinois. Eastward from there, it could very well drop off. And even going out week 4, which I always say take with a grain of salt, these are climate models 4 weeks out, but it's still showing that type of pattern. And remember, the reason that this is expected is because with that southwest flow, there'll be energy coming up in this area, there'll be a boundary in here, and that boundary will be waving back and forth. So I wouldn't be surprised for the next month to get precipitation near to maybe even below normal from Indiana and Ohio, and then above normal elsewhere. Now, temperatures this week, here are the actual temperatures, but let's take a look at the soil temperatures. We had quite a push of warmer soils temperatures this week. You can see how far 60s have now reached across Nebraska, well into Iowa, even into Wisconsin, so a very strong push of temperatures. But then if we go through the week, remember that front, we see some dropping of temperatures. We drop back into the 60s, generally in the 60 to 65 degree range over the areas in yellow, and then in the 50s in the upper plains. So a cooling of soil temperatures, upper soil temperatures in this region and here, and actually all regions, but still staying in the 60s in that region. So here are your takeaway from this week's ag weather outlook. Adequate rainfall all areas, but especially the central part of the Corn Belt into the west. A bit cooler this week once that front moves through, but overall I'm looking at near normal temperatures. And it really, other than perhaps some dryness over the far eastern Corn Belt, I think overall we're looking at a pattern of adequate, if not excessive in some spots, rainfall right through the end of the month or even longer. So right now I don't think we're going to be seeing too much concern with emerging drought over most of the Corn Belt, if not the entire Corn Belt. So if you have any questions, if I'm not answering what you have in your mind, your question, hey, give me a call, or don't give me a call, send me an email. There's my email, john@bluewateroutlook.com. I'd be glad to answer any of your questions, and maybe I'm even missing something in these briefings. I'd be glad to add those as well. Also, tell others about it. Pass it along. Have them sign up. The more the merrier, and we'd like to pass this information on. So have a great week, and we'll be talking with you again real soon.